Live Fit Podcast, episode 78, Sedentary Death Syndrome. Low cardiorespiratory fitness, coronary heart disease, endothelial dysfunction, peripheral artery disease,
hypertension, stroke, congestive heart disorder, osteoporosis, osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, depression, anxiety, cognitive dysfunction, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, diverticulitis, constipation, gallbladder disease, accelerated biological aging and premature death, type 2 diabetes, metabolic syndrome, obesity, colon cancer, breast cancer, endothelial cancer, sarcopenia, balance problems, bone fractures, dyslipidemia, preeclampsia, gestational diabetes, polycystic ovary syndrome, erectile dysfunction, hemostasis, deep vein thrombosis, and
pain.
Welcome to the Live Fit Podcast with Glenn Johnson, your resource for all things that contribute to good health. You will hear expert advice and interviews with leading authorities on fitness, food, fat loss, mindset, and the mind-body connection. You will find show notes, articles, and health programs at livefitpodcast.com.
Yes, it is time once again for the Live Fit Podcast. I'm your host, Glenn Johnson, and this is episode 78, Sedentary Death Syndrome. Sounds pretty scary, doesn't it? I was thinking of calling it Sit and Die, Move to Live, or Move to Improve, but I felt that sedentary death syndrome was more attention-getting, but it was also more accurate because it really is a scary thing. You would not believe all the ailments a person can obtain by being physically inactive. Would you like to hear them? All right, there's 35 of them, so get ready. Here we go. These are all the things that can happen to you if you are not active enough, physically active enough. Take a big breath for this one. Low cardiorespiratory fitness, coronary heart disease, endothelial dysfunction, peripheral artery disease, hypertension, stroke, congestive heart disorder, osteoporosis, osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, depression, anxiety, cognitive dysfunction, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, diverticulitis, constipation, gallbladder disease, accelerated biological aging and premature death, type 2 diabetes, metabolic syndrome, obesity, colon cancer, breast cancer, endothelial cancer, sarcopenia, balance problems, bone fractures, dyslipidemia, preeclampsia, gestational diabetes, polycystic ovary syndrome, erectile dysfunction, hemostasis, deep vein thrombosis, and pain. Pain. That's right. Being inactive causes pain in all of the ways I just mentioned, plus undesignated, unreasonable pain for no apparent reason, except that the reason is that you're not active enough. You might hear that I'm breathing a little bit. I just went for a little run. I had to. It was beautiful out there. As I was going through my notes, preparing for this talk, I'm looking out the window and the sunlight is hitting the green bamboo in my backyard, and it's glowing. Outside, the green grass, it's almost fluorescent. It's so beautiful. Now, granted, I'm in the Pacific Northwest, so it does rain a fair amount, and up until yesterday midday, it had been raining and dark and windy and cold for a week. So I am loving the sunshine. I had to get out in it, went for a walk, went for a run. All the kids are out, they're running through the neighborhood. It is really fantastic. It's warm. I mean, it gives me a lot of motivation to be fit so I can go out and walk in it and run in it and see the kids running. I mean, they know what to do. Kids are running around. My son and his friends up the street were running all around yesterday, just playing whatever they're playing. But tell me, that is some good exercise. And that's what we're talking about today. All those ailments I just listed can be completely prevented and sometimes even reversed with adequate physical activity. Let me start this off with a quote from Hippocrates. If we could give every individual the right amount of nourishment and exercise, not too little and not too much, we would have found the safest way to health. Did you know that 92% of adolescents and 95% of adults do not meet minimum guidelines for physical activity? That's 5% of us adults do not get enough adequate exercise. So some of us exercise daily. Some of us are physically active. But according to research studies, 5% of us are active enough. People have been growing weaker and larger and less healthy since the Industrial Revolution began. Yeah, I think we all know that. But did you know that the rate has been growing exponentially since the computer revolution? I mean, I have 2 computers in the room I'm in right now, not counting my smartphone. So what? What does that mean? Does that keep me from being fit and active? No, that does not. But some of these other things do. And the fact that people play games on computers and they work on computers means they're sitting. There's a lot of technology that we can wear. Wearable technology, fantastic stuff. Help you track how far you're walking. The Fitbit pioneered it, I believe, with a really nice pedometer that would tell you distance in feet, how many steps you took, and also distance in, miles. It's a great idea for people that kind of need to force it to be purposefully exercising. Because face it, we don't have to hunt for our food anymore, so we don't get that forced upon us. In fact, we don't even need to go to the store for food. We can stay put. We can tell Siri to call the pizza parlor to deliver a pizza to us. And then all we have to really do to move our body is get to the front door and back again. That's not very much exercise. But that's the sad state we're in. Elevators and escalators and automobiles take us places and do not require very much human energy. The list of these energy-saving devices for humans could fill this episode. But what's the point? You know what they are. You know which ones they are in your life. Maybe you're not aware of it. Maybe you're not really thinking about how you're not using energy, your own physical energy, and how that adds up just like pennies add up. Everything you don't do is like a penny you didn't find. As you walk, if you found a penny with every step you took, you'd probably be more encouraged to walk more. But it would also add up pretty quick. Every 100 steps, there's $1. And face it, 100 steps is not all that far. A lot of us are forced in sedentary jobs. I mentioned computers because more people work in front of computers now than, certainly than ever before. But think of it this way. More people work in front of computers than don't. Even I do. I spend a lot of time in front of a computer. I'm either preparing for a podcast or an article, working on my website, answering email, working on my program, corresponding with clients. I'm preparing for a class. I'm grading papers. I even teach online. So I'm in front of a computer a fair amount. I have to purposely think about moving my body. One thing I do is I keep a big giant jug on my desk. It holds about 1.5 gallons. And I drink that sucker down. Depends on how long I'm in here, but in 1 or 2 days, I drink the whole thing. Well, and what goes in must come out. So about every hour, I have to take a walk down the hall. Granted, it's not very far, but that is enough to move my body. And if that's all I do is just walk down the hall, which is about 10 steps, turn around, come back, I've at least taken a break from sitting. My point is, we can probably work in a little more activity than we think we can. We're just not thinking about it. We're being complacent. We're accepting what is put in front of us. Some of my neighbors drive to pick up their kids. Even on a day like today, I've seen them drive. And I mean, I live not even 1/2 mile from the school, and it's a really easy and quite pleasant of a walk. But sometimes the weather's nasty. I can understand not wanting to be out in it, but I do. It's a sense of pride for me. I'm setting an example. I'm a role model. And even if nobody saw me, I would still do it because I want the walk. I want to experience the elements. I want to feel weather. Whether or not it's good or bad, whether I like it or not, it's still real. It's life. It's living. I love life. I want to live. I want to live to be 100 years old. When I was 12 years old, a couple of old guys got in my face and they told me, getting old sucks. I'm like, but I want to get older. They said, don't get old. Dude, come on. I'm 12. I want to get older. Yeah, older, but not old. And I don't know how I figured it out, but sometime shortly after I heard these guys say these comments to me, I figured out there is no magic bullet, no magic potion, no recipe, no design, no nothing to stop aging, but you can slow it down. I don't know how I figured that out. Maybe I read it, maybe I heard it, and hopefully somebody is hearing me say the same thing. You cannot stop aging, but you sure as heck can change how rapidly you age. You can speed up aging. You can slow down aging. Stress and a lot of drugs, illicit drugs, will speed up aging. Drinking too much alcohol speeds up aging. Not eating an appropriate diet, not eating healthy foods, and certainly not being as physically active as the body needs will speed up aging. And by speeding up aging, it means instead of dying at age 70, maybe you die at age 60. And you know another thing about that? Generally, the last 10 years of your life or so are not very happy. They're miserable. You don't feel good. You're in pain. Very uncomfortable. Laying in a bed, using a walker, wheelchair, doctor visits, sympathy looks. I don't want any of that. None of it. I want to live vigorously with vitality until the day I die, until that candle winks out. That's how I want to live. So I am living my life with purpose to contribute to my health, not take away from it. I'm not saying I'm an angel. I'm not saying I never eat French fries. I'm not saying I've never been stressed. I'm not saying I've never stayed up all night. I'm not even saying I've never stayed up all night drinking, but I don't do that anymore. And I haven't had a really sordid past, but I've seen how the other half lives. Let's put it that way. And I like this half better. I feel better. I feel better mentally and physically. I feel stronger, more capable, more confident, more able, and face it, more happy. You know, after I graduated college, I started down that long, lonely, maybe it's not that lonely, that long, desolate road to poor health. I had a extremely sedentary job doing post-production sound for film and TV. I could literally sit in a chair and not move anything except for my forearms and fingers and hands and wrists. So from the elbows out, I could move those things and work an entire day. And we're not even talking 8 hours. Most of my shifts were 10, sometimes 12 hours to finish what I needed to do. But fortunately, I wised up. I saw the light. Not just the light, but I saw what was down at the end of that road. And they were those 35 things I just named. It really struck home when I had to buy a new pair of pants that were bigger than I've ever worn before. And then another pair. And the fact that I felt slow and sluggish and lethargic and kind of just felt pain most of the time also spoke volumes to me. I had a mindset shift that steered me towards good health. I decided I'm not going to destroy my health for the man, especially when this man came in one day on payday, sporting a brand new Lexus, bragging about how awesome this new car was. And in the very next sentence said, "Sorry, I don't have payroll today." What? I'm working my butt off 10 to 12 hours a day, wasting my health for this lousy paycheck that now I'm not getting because you bought yourself a new car? Okay, I saw the writing. I definitely saw the writing. I am not going to waste my health for anybody else's business. Maybe, and I'm not, but maybe for my own on a temporary basis, but not for somebody else, especially that pig. Did you hear a little anger there? I'm not angry anymore. I just wanted you to feel what I felt at the time. So I didn't know the name of it at the time, but what I did when I shifted my mindset from health damaging to health improving was I avoided sedentary death syndrome. This is an important thing. I don't want to die early. I don't want to die miserable. I wanted to avoid these chronic, potentially life-threatening diseases. So I changed my attitude. I changed my habits. I returned to a state of good health. I started going to the gym every day on the way to work. I was walking to work all this time. So I thought I was being healthy. It was about a mile, maybe a mile and a quarter one way. So I thought, hey, well, at least I'm walking to work. But that didn't make up for the cheeseburger, and fries and shake I was eating every day once I got to work, that I had sent to me, by the way, so I didn't even have to walk to get it. You can make this permanent shift too. In fact, I did an episode 2 weeks ago, number 76, with a man named Cliff Ravenscraft. He has a wonderful story about how he changed his life. He literally transformed his life from very damaging. He had some of the things that I listed here too. He had a very damaging lifestyle, and it was catching up with him very quickly. He was building his own business, so he rationalized that it was worth it to trash his health for a little while to build his business. Fortunately, he turned things around before they got too far out of control. He had some issues, but he turned it around. So good job, Cliff. The fact of the matter is, guys, the body wants to move. You can argue that all you want, and I'm going to refute it every way. The body wants to move. Think of that pet hamster or mouse or rat in a cage. There's usually a wheel in that cage, right? And that rodent will jump on it a few times a day and run. Or at night. I used to have a hamster, and I know that he ran on that wheel at night because it squeaked, and I could hear it. But I never trained that hamster to run on the wheel. I never held a piece of food there and teased him with it to get him to run. Nope. I just put it in there, and he did it. Why do you suppose that is? Not a rhetorical question. I'm hoping for answers here. Why do you suppose that is? Well, let me tell you what I think. Because moving makes a body feel good. Because that rodent has an ingrained sense that he needs to stay fit. Now, true, he might need to run for his life away from a cat someday. It's also true that humans don't have to do that very often. But the body still wants to be fit. It functions a lot better when it's fit. It becomes fit from movement. Circulation moves throughout the body much better when the body moves rather than being inactive. The entire lymphatic system has very little ability to pump on its own when you're not moving. Some, yeah, your breathing and the heart rate will do some, but mostly it's your movement that pumps the lymphatic system, and that is your drainage system. Now, people, we force ourselves to sit at a desk and read and write and think. We tell ourselves that we can't exercise because we need our energy for other things, thinking things. We make all kinds of reasons why we just can't give our bodies the physical activity that it needs and deserves. Many of us have been doing this for so long, the body is resigned to just sit. It has given up. It has become fit for sit. I'd like to impress upon every one of you the folly in this course of inaction by explaining some of the specific results of being inactive and what you can do to improve your health. But first, I'd like to go over some definitions. What is health? Health is a human condition with physical, social, and psychological dimensions, each characterized by a continuum with positive and negative poles. Convoluted, right? Basically, positive health is associated with a capacity to enjoy life and to withstand challenges. It is not simply the absence of disease. Now, what's physical fitness? This is the ability to carry out daily tasks with vigor and alertness, without undue fatigue, and with ample energy to enjoy leisure time pursuits and respond to emergencies. This will include a healthy balance of the following components: cardiorespiratory endurance, muscular strength, flexibility, balance, speed and movement, reaction time, and body composition. In other words, how much body fat a person has. Now, the definition of exercise is it's a subcategory of physical activity in that it's planned, it's structured, it's repetitive, and it's purposive. It's meant to improve or maintain one or more of the components of fitness. Physical activity is any bodily movement produced by the contraction of skeletal muscles that increase the energy expenditure of the resting metabolic rate. Physical inactivity. This is activity levels that are less than those that are required for optimal health and the prevention of premature death. Now, I'd like to go into some more detail about some of those ailments that people can acquire by being physically inactive. I have a list of 13 here. Let me briefly read through those and then I'll explain. Low cardiorespiratory fitness, cardiovascular disease, bone and joint disease, depression, anxiety, cognitive dysfunctions, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, accelerated aging, digestive tract diseases, insulin resistance, diabetes, metabolic syndrome, obesity, and cancer. Low cardiorespiratory fitness is one of the most prominent predictors of poor health. In fact, low cardiorespiratory fitness is more important or more damaging than hypertension, smoking, diabetes, and even abnormal heart rhythms. In contrast, though, men and women who have a high cardiorespiratory fitness have predictors of optimal health. So a way to know where yours is, you need to know what your VO2 max is first. But if you know what your VO2 max is, you can use that to kind of gauge where you are compared to other people, your size and age and sex. You can also compare it with your own VO2 max from a previous or a later date. Let's talk about cardiovascular disease. Disorders of the heart and the blood vessels account for at least 1 in 3 deaths in the United States. Now, there are 5 different cardiovascular diseases that I'm going to talk about. They are coronary heart disease, peripheral artery disease, hypertension, stroke, and congestive heart failure or dysfunction. The first one, coronary heart disease. This is when an accumulation of plaque and white blood cells restricts the blood flow of blood to the heart muscle itself. Now, the heart beats and it squeezes blood through the inside of it, but that blood that's on the inside of the heart does not feed the heart muscle. It would make sense if it did, but it does not do that. It takes a separate set of arteries that go around the outside of the heart to give the heart muscles their blood that they need to beat. Now, plaque accumulates inside those arteries, just like they do in other parts of the body. And this is responsible for 1 out of 7 deaths in the United States. The next CVD is peripheral artery disease. This is the exact same thing, except it's in the periphery of the body, which is all of your vessels except the torso. So your limbs, basically, your arms and legs. This afflicts 8.5 million Americans that are over the age of 40, and it is most common in inactive people developing in their legs, so they are most likely to have deep vein thrombosis. Hypertension affects people over the age of 50 primarily and will shave 5 years off of their life. Or if you don't have it, it adds 5 years. Stroke is the loss of blood flow to a part of the brain, which is either caused by a blockage or a broken vessel that lets the blood escape so it doesn't reach the nether regions. This might result in a loss of sensations, consciousness, or voluntary muscle motion, and it is the 4th most common killer of Americans. Congestive heart failure, I like to call it congestive heart dysfunction because it really is an inefficient heart. It's not a heart that has stopped or totally failed, it's just not working properly. The heart does not eject as much blood as it receives. This causes a chain reaction, starting with a reduction or an inadequate supply of oxygen to the kidneys. The kidneys release a hormone to cause the blood vessels to constrict and to hold on to fluid, so the blood pressure actually goes up. This makes it even harder for the heart to pump blood out of it, thereby worsening the condition. Now, congestive heart failure or dysfunction might show up as edema in the legs, if it's the right side of the heart, or in the lungs, if it's the congestion is on the left side of the heart. And that is the most common, the lungs. The blood gets backed up because it can't all get into the heart, so it backs up into the lungs, and then it kind of perfuses through the alveoli into the lungs, and people start coughing, pink, foamy sputum. Sounds pretty gross, doesn't it? My voice is a little funny right now because I seem to be having allergies. I don't feel like I have a cold, but it's right in my throat. So it's either allergies or a cold that is just hanging into one little area. But Hey, got to do it. Now, bone and joint diseases are also caused by inactivity. Osteoarthritis is one of the main ones, and this is a degeneration of the cartilage and the underlying bone around the joints. Rheumatoid arthritis is a chronic autoimmune disease that is characterized by inflammation of the joints and sometimes deformities. It may be caused by a systemic inflammation. And guess what? Aerobic and resistance training have been shown to decrease the incidence of rheumatoid arthritis. Now, if you're interested in hearing more about arthritis, please listen next week to episode 79 as Dr. Will Harden discusses arthritis in depth, what causes it, and what you can do about it, besides exercising. Inactivity also increases the issues of depression and anxiety. 8% of American women and 4% of men are affected by depression. Anxiety is at 10% for both men and women. Now, studies have shown that physically active people are less likely to suffer from depression or anxiety. The risk for people with anxiety, though, is that it leads to self-medicating with alcohol and or drugs, which can lead to bigger problems. Inactivity leads to cognitive dysfunctions, but aerobic and resistance exercises improve that. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. This is a progressive disease that occurs in people who drink no more than 1 or 2 alcoholic beverages per day. So 1 for women, 2 for men. If you're a man and you don't drink any more than 2 drinks per day, you could still acquire non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. How? Very simply, sugar. Now, all types of sugar, with the one exception of fructose, is metabolized in the cells of the body, primarily in the gut wall, and then the glucose moves to the cells that need it where it is further broken down. Fructose, on the other hand, goes directly to the liver and is only metabolized in the liver. So if a person is ingesting large quantities at one time or over a long period of time, this fructose builds up in the liver and causes fatty deposits. A really good way to damage your liver is to drink a liquid form of fructose, such as soda or a fruit juice. Now, fructose obviously can be found, from the name, in fruit. Fruit juice is a really good way to get a lot of that fructose into your liver at one time. But you know what? So is soda, because high fructose corn syrup, as the name implies, has a good amount of fructose. It's only about 50%, just like table sugar and honey. What a lot of people don't know is that agave is about 90% fructose. Yeah, 90% fructose. You're not going to get away from fructose because it's everywhere. It's in table sugar. About half of table sugar is fructose. So if you're eating a lot of sugar, you're getting it in your body. Sugar itself has been shown to be damaging to the body, not just the other things that it causes, like obesity. That has its own damages, but sugar itself is damaging. And it can be found in most processed foods, especially the sweet ones. Now, you know, cookies and candies and cakes all have a lot of sugar, but condiments do too. Breads, a lot of other foods have sugar in it. Even lunch meat has sugar in it. I would recommend seeing the movie Fed Up because it speaks about sugar in all sorts of ways you've probably never seen or heard of. But you want to know what? Being physically active enables the liver to metabolize this fructose much more efficiently and therefore reducing your risk of fatty liver disease. Now, if you're interested in learning more about sugar, for example, how to break the sugar habit, or if you want to hear the podcast I did with my wife and myself called The Sugar Battle, go to livefitlean.com and in the search bar, type in sugar, and you'll see those 2 articles. One's a podcast, one's simply an article. Inactivity also causes premature aging. The body will break down naturally. We can't help this, but we can speed it up. Inactivity causes digestive tract diseases such as diverticulitis, constipation, and gallbladder diseases. It also causes insulin resistance. Now, insulin is known as the storage hormone. It allows the glucose to get into the cells. I kind of think of insulin like a key to open a door. And if I want to get inside a door, it's locked. I need to use that key, turn it, and then I can get in. So I'm the glucose. The key is the insulin. Now, when you're insulin resistant, think of that little brat kid, Jimmy, down the street. He comes up to your house right before you get home, and he pulls out a wad of his gum and stuffs it in the keyhole. Now you try to get in your house, but you can't because Jimmy stuck gum in there. It's all gummed up. You are insulin resistant. You cannot get in the house. The glucose cannot get in the cell. Ergo, the cell cries out for more. I'm hungry. I need more. So you eat more, or that person does. But the trouble is the glucose isn't getting where it needs to go, and the blood sugar level keeps going up and up and up. If you'd like to hear more about insulin, listen back a week ago at episode 77 with Dr. Will Harden as he discusses this very important hormone. Diabetes. The incidence of diabetes is increasing rapidly. Estimates show that in just 4 years, in 2020, half of the American population will have either full-blown diabetes mellitus or prediabetes. Half of our population. Come on, guys, what's going on? Well, if you listen to what I just said about insulin resistance, you might have an idea. Sugar. Lots and lots of sugar is being consumed. Let's move on down to metabolic syndrome. Now, this is one of those umbrella syndromes that covers at least 3 of the following risk factors. Fasting glucose over 100. A low level of the good cholesterol, so HDL lower than 40. A high level of triglycerides over 150. A waist circumference in men of 40 inches or more, or a waist circumference in women of 35 inches or more. And finally, a blood pressure that's over 130 over 85. Or being treated for blood pressure, for high blood pressure. Obesity is also a risk factor of being inactive. More than 35% of American adults are considered to be obese based on a BMI of 30 or more. Now, middle-aged adults, 40 to 59 years old, are at the highest risk. And if you consider that the average person walks a mere 5,000 steps per day, that's about half of what the body needs. We also need to perform regular, vigorous exercise. And if you understand that the average person in the United States only walks about 5,000 steps per day, which is about half of what the body needs, they're not getting nearly enough. They also need to be upping their exercise intensity because walking alone isn't enough. All right, the last thing I have here is cancer. Cancer is tricky. We certainly can't reduce our risk of cancer completely by exercising regularly and frequently, but there are 3 types of cancers that are greatly reduced by physical activity. That's breast, colon, and endothelial. So what can be done about all this? That's a pretty heavy load, but you know what? Exercise can handle it. These are all preventable, and some of them are even reversible. So what can you do to prevent all these 35 ailments from tackling you? Move your body, exercise, be physically active. You don't have to go to a gym and spend an hour doing a workout. You could, or you could move a little in the morning, go for a walk, do some things in the afternoon, do some push-ups, things here and there. You can sneak it in whenever you want. I have a series of 9-minute workouts. Do that. Quick and easy. Bam. Done. You can even do just 3 minutes of that and then go for a walk for 27 minutes. That's your vigorous and your moderate right there. So ACSM, the American College of Sports Medicine, recommends that everybody, for optimal health, exercise at a moderate to vigorous rate for at least 30 minutes a day for at least 4 days a week. Now, what I've been telling my clients for years, forever it seems, is to do at least 45 minutes, 6 days a week. I'll settle for 30. But you know what? I don't want you at all to feel overwhelmed. If a half an hour, 6 days a week is too much for you, do what you can do. Work your way up to it. Maybe don't even have your sights on it. Just say, well, I'm going to do more than I am used to. If the farthest you ever walk is your car at the end of the driveway, well, do that twice. Or maybe to the mailbox, or maybe down the block to the end of the street. Just do more than you're used to doing. Work your way up. Just keep getting those little wins. Say, hey, personal best. I walked halfway down the block. Hey, another personal best. I got to the end of the block. Whatever is a challenge for you, do a little bit more than you're used to, and that's going to make your health better. So ACSM says you should do cardiovascular exercise 3 to 4 days a week and weight training at least 2 days a week. Personally, I tell my clients 3 days of cardio, 3 days of resistance training. You really need to do them both. You really, really do. Now, you don't have to do, like I said, 3 hours of weightlifting in a gym each week. Body weight counts as resistance training. So you could do squats and lunges and push-ups at home. You could go for a walk and then speed it up to a really brisk pace, and that might be vigorous. Or maybe walk and then some running for a little bit and back to a walk, and then, switch back and forth between walking and running. Whatever you can do. Just challenge yourself. If you're up to 60 minutes, 6 days a week, don't worry about doing more than that. If you want to, for fun, go for it. But that's really at the upper limit of what you need for optimal health. So 30 to 60 minutes, 4 to 7 days per week. So I'm going to round that out and say 30 minutes, 6 days a week, as long as you hit vigorous. Now, what is vigorous? Vigorous is where you're breathing hard, your heart is beating really, really fast, you can't really have a conversation. You can maybe say 2 or 3 words at a time. That's how hard you're breathing. Oh, and you're sweating. You don't have to hold that for a half an hour. If I say 30 minutes of moderate to vigorous, that means you could do maybe 25 minutes of moderate and then sprint for the last 5 minutes or somewhere in the middle, however you want to organize it. Now, there are some things you can do to damage your health that fit within these parameters, and most of them are kind of sports related. Things like soccer and basketball and hockey, but also running. Those are all things that are bad for your joints. So I kind of discourage doing those activities. But my caveat to that is, if that's what motivates you to move your body and also to do resistance training and some of these other things, because it makes you better at that sport you like doing, go ahead and do it. I'm not giving up cycling for almost anything because I love it. That's part of who I am. That's what I love to do. That's what motivates me, not only to be active while I'm riding, but it also motivates me to train so I can be better when I'm out on my bike riding, to make that easier and more fun. So there's lots of things you can do. Now, I didn't speak much about resistance training specifically. I mentioned some of the things that are improved by resistance training, weight training. Let me go over a list of the health benefits that are created by resistance training. I know I didn't talk much about resistance training specifically. I mentioned it on some of the ailments that can improve from the use of resistance training, such as osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, and osteoporosis. Anything that involves the bones can be improved by weight training. So weight training can benefit your resting metabolic rate, improve self-esteem and self-concept, improve your resting blood pressure. It'll increase your bone mineral density in the bones that are being used. If you're doing leg press, you're not improving the bones in your upper body. If you're doing chest press, you're not improving the bones in your lower body. So you have to use pretty much everything. It's not hard to work every muscle in the body. In fact, you can do so with 3 different exercises. Resistance training also improves your blood lipid profile. It enhances your physical function for daily activities. It slows sarcopenia, improves your cognitive abilities, makes you smarter. It also improves your insulin sensitivity and your glycemic control, and it will help you manage and control depression. As a recap, exercise, cardio, and resistance training will help reduce the risk of visceral obesity, type 2 diabetes, metabolic syndrome, memory decline. It'll improve skin wound healing. It'll help prevent Alzheimer's disease, dementia, depression, and anxiety. It'll reduce the risk of breast, colon, and endometrial cancers, reduce stroke, coronary heart disease, peripheral artery disease, hypertension, elevated LDL, the bad cholesterol. It will improve your HDL, the good cholesterol. It'll improve your immune system. It will reduce artery stiffness, reduce osteoporosis. It'll improve your balance and coordination. It'll improve joint function, and it'll also decrease the chance of fatty liver disorder. Now, I'd like to end this podcast with a quote from the man who started it, Hippocrates. Walking is man's best medicine. Thank you, and have a pleasant tomorrow.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Live Fit Podcast. Please subscribe and share with someone you care about. Read show notes, articles, resources, and learn more about our weight management programs at livefitpodcast.com. Once again, thanks for listening, and always remember to live fit.